S. And we are going to solve, we don't need to solve every single equation on this notes paper because there's a lot on the front and the back combined. But we can solve quite a few of them, okay? So that you have plenty of examples before you start on your assignment. All right, so in question number 1, remember we're following those steps at all times. So question number 1, problem 1, does it have the distributive property? Do we need to do that? What is it going to have that's going to indicate that we have to do distributive property? Parentheses. So since you don't see parentheses, you know that you don't need to do any distributing. So can we combine like terms? What would be an indication that you can combine like terms? What do you mean the variables? But more description of what you mean. Okay. Can anyone else help with a more detailed explanation of how you know that you need to combine like terms before you do anything else? Tommy. Two of the same thing. Can you? Two what though? There are two exponents, or there's not two exponents, there's two variables. But two the same, those things are called terms, right? Terms. How many terms do we have on the left side of this equation? 3 terms. Before you solve, you can only have 2 terms. Let me say that again. Before you start solving, you should only have 2 terms on each side of the equation. So since I have 3 terms, I know I definitely need to do something, and that something is combining like terms. So your like terms are your 2x and your negative 8x. So we're doing 2 minus 8, which is negative 6x. And then everything else about your equation stays the same. Plus 1 equals 49. So you should be solving this on your paper if you aren't currently. So now we have 2 terms. So since we have 2 terms, we can actually solve. Which number, the negative 6 or the 1, should I get rid of first? The 1. So I'm going to get rid of the 1 by subtracting 1 from both sides of my equation. And when I do that, I end up with negative 6x equals 48. And my last step is to get rid of this negative 6. So I'm going to divide by negative 6. Very good. So x equals, it's negative because the signs are different. 48 divided by 6 is 8. Very good. This is your final answer, so box it in. Box it in. Circle it. Fine. So it's taking things that we have done, because we spent time distributing and combining like terms to simplify an expression. We spent time solving 2-step equations. So now it's like putting those skills together, okay? But I wanted to do those skills separately so that we were ready for these types of multi-step equations. All right, so let's look at number 2. What might be challenging for some people about number 2? All right, so it's backwards. And what I'm sure you mean by that, Josh, is that your variable is on the right-hand side, correct? So does it change how we're going to solve this if the variable's on the right-hand side? No. So as you can see on the right-hand side of our equation, we still have 3 terms, correct? So we can't have anything more than 2 terms before we actually start solving. So I need to combine some like terms over here on the right. Which 2 terms can be combined? Try again. A little bit more needed there with those. Not just 11 and 5. Good. Remember, the sign in front of the number goes with it. So this is a negative 5, and this is a negative 11. That's really important that you're keeping that sign with that number. What is negative 5 and a negative 11? What does that give you? Negative 16. When you're solving these on your own later, are you going to be able to use a calculator? Yes. Yes. So negative 19 we didn't change, the equal sign didn't change, and this negative 3a did not change. Okay? So now, again, my goal is to get my variable by itself, the a. I want to get rid of negative 16, and I also want to get rid of negative 3. Which of those two numbers should I get rid of first? I need to get rid of negative 16 first because this 3 is multiplying my variable. And remember, that's your last step. So what would be the opposite of negative 16? Positive 16. Good. So I need to do positive 16 on both sides of my equation. What is negative 19 plus 16? Negative 3. Good. Equals, my 16s are gone, and I'm left with a negative 3a. Now let's just think about this before I even show how to solve it. Negative 3 times what would give you negative 3? A positive 1. That's the identity property of multiplication. When you multiply by 1, the number doesn't change. The identity doesn't change. So we know the answer is going to be 1, but I'm going to go ahead and show that step. That step is dividing by a negative 3, and negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. So a equals 1. It's okay if you have 1 equals a. It's fine. Any questions on that one? Am I going a little too fast, or are we okay? All right. I know there's a lot of writing up here, so hopefully I'm trying to go as slow as I can. All right, number 3. How many terms are to the right of the equation? 4 terms. Remember, we can only have 2 terms. So let's look for our terms that have the variable first. Which 2 terms have the variable? Try again. Good. So negative 5w and positive 9w. So we're going to combine those first. Negative 5 plus 9. Positive 4. So make sure you have that positive sign, 4, and your w comes along with it. And then our other 2 terms, they don't have variables. Do you remember what those are called? Things that don't change are constants. They don't have a variable. It's not going to change. It's a constant. So our constants are 10 and a negative 7. So it's like 10 minus 7, which is a positive 3. So put that positive sign in front of it. Now, 19 did not change. My equal sign did not change. Any questions about how I got those 2 new terms? Okay. Hopefully once you get to this step, then it's not that difficult of a problem for you. Which number, the 4 or the 3, should I get rid of first? The 3. How do I get rid of it? Minus 3. So 19 minus 3 is 16 equals a positive 4w, and my 3's are gone. What's my last step? Good. Just the 4, okay? Divide by positive 4. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. So w equals 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay. Everybody have this one done? All right. I am recording this, so this will go on there. Now, number 4 is really similar, so I'm just going to skip number 4. I'm going to move on down to number 5. Because what's different about number 5? You need to distribute, and you know you need to distribute because there are parentheses. So let's practice distributing real quick. When you distribute, you're doing 7 times your first number. 7 times x would give you 7x. And then you're going to do 7 times your second number. Now, when you do 7 times the second number, don't just do 7 times 6. Do 7 times negative 6. It's going to make your life easier, okay? 7 times negative 6 is negative 42. Nothing changed about equals or the negative 14. We're not doing them all, Tommy. Thank you for letting everyone know there's a back. All right, next. Do I have any like terms that I need to combine? No. Remember, you can only combine terms. Like this equal sign is like a barrier. I can only combine like terms on the left With things on the left, the right has to stay on the right. So there are no like terms that I can combine. I only have 2, I'm good. So what should I do now? Good. I need to get rid of this minus 42, so I'm going to do a positive 42. Plus 42, yep. So that means my 42s are gone, and I'm left with my 7x equals, be very careful here, you're doing a negative 14 and a positive 42. What that means, since they're different, you're going to subtract those two numbers. Subtract the absolute values. I'm going to pause for a second, and if you don't have a calculator, why don't you come on up and get one. Alright, so now that everyone has a calculator, what is negative 14 plus 42? A positive 28, okay? Good. And what's my last step here? Divide by 7. Divide by 7. So when you divide by 7, the 7s are gone. And 28 divided by 7, yes, is 4. Okay. Let me look at 6. Now I think we're okay on 6. I think we're okay on 7. Let's look at number 8, please. Let's look at number 8. What might be challenging for some people about number 8, Stephen? It's a fraction instead of a whole number that we're going to distribute. So, if you're not very good at fractions, can you change a fraction to a decimal? Yep, and then you have a calculator, so problem solved. So I think, though, a 1/2 is a pretty easy fraction to work with, though. Okay, we're just finding half a number. But be careful because this is a negative 1/2. So when you do a negative times a positive, you get a negative, and half of 12 is 6. So a negative 1/2 times 12 is a negative 6. And then don't forget your variable that tags along. Now I'm going to do negative 1/2 times, again, include that negative sign with your 42. So a negative times a negative is a positive. Half of 42 is 21. And then equals negative 33. So there was no real difference in how we solved this problem, how we distributed a fraction. We just had to do a little bit more thinking than maybe normal. Okay? What's my next step? Minus 21 from each side. So again, for those of you using a calculator, put your negative sign in, 33. Just use your normal minus sign, 21, and then hit enter. Yes, it's negative 54. If you were doing this in your head, since the signs are the same, you are adding the absolute values. So negative 6p equals a negative 54. And the last step is to divide by negative 6. It is not negative 9. It is not negative anything. Why is it not a negative answer? 2 negatives make a positive. It's a positive 9. We should not be getting things like 54 divided by 6 wrong when you have a calculator sitting on your desk. My point was, for the people that are getting it wrong, that no one should be getting it wrong when you have a calculator. Alright, let's look at the back side of your paper now. Again, we are not doing them all. But I would at least like to do number 9. Because number 9 is going to involve all 4 steps. Number 9 has all 4 steps. And I know that because I see parentheses, and I see more than just the distributive part. I see this negative 7y. That means I'm going to have to combine like terms also. So, let's first distribute, please. Number 9 is what we're on. 5 times y is and 5 times negative 2, negative 10. Nothing else changed in my equation, so then negative 7y equals negative 32. The neater you can be, I know some people's handwriting is not the best, but the neater you can be about your handwriting, the easier time you're going to have. Some of you, I don't know how you read your own writing, honestly. So I'm just saying, I know that there's only so much you can do if your handwriting is not great, but try to write as neatly as possible, okay? Maybe slow down a little bit and that would help you. All right, so we distributed first, and now I'm going to combine like terms. Which two terms are my like terms? 5 and negative 7. Very good. Negative 2y. My negative 10 or minus 10 did not change, and I didn't do anything on my right-hand side, so that stays a negative 32. And again, hopefully now this is the easy part. We're going to do what now? Plus 10. This can be the last one we have to do, okay? Minus 10 plus 10 are gone. Negative 2y equals negative 22. Negative 32 plus 10 is negative 22. And then divide by negative 2. Y equals a positive 11. Very good. All right, so I'm going to give you your assignment now. Your assignment looks a little similar. It has 12 problems. There is room for you to solve your problem. If you're someone that can't handle writing small to fit in the space, because your handwriting is huge, then maybe you should use a separate piece of paper, okay? So try, please, to write as neatly as possible. We have 15 minutes of work time left.